I think it's useless.
What do you guys think of ISAs, income sharing agreements? These have become kind of, Lambda School does them, a bunch of other schools. David, you saw a startup we just invested in that's doing them, and I think you liked them at the demo day we did with Kraft. Maybe, this idea is who should take the risk for an education? And when you look at an ISA, an income sharing agreement, what they're saying is the school takes the risk. They let you come to school for free. They give you what would be the equivalent of, let's say, a $15,000 coding camp or growth marketer risk. Then you pay double that amount over 5, 6, 7 years as a percentage of your income. But if you don't get income, if you don't break 50K a year, you don't have to pay it back. And if you decide to go back to school or your income drops below 50, you don't have to do it. Can you imagine if a college had to make that promise?
They should do it. They should start in college sports, but they should do it. Imagine Duke basically went and recruited kids and said, listen, we're going to pay you to come to Duke. We're going to get you educated. We're going to teach you how to play basketball better than anybody else. And we're going to take 5% of your future earnings. Yes or no? You're not going to have to go to boosters. You're not going to have to take money. You're not going to have to do any of this stuff on the side, but just be your best, learn to play the game. We'll get you a reasonable education. We'll give you a good infrastructure, and we take 5% of the back end.
With a cap. So you could cap the upside, right? So you don't take something unreasonable.
Maybe there's no cap. But why do we always have to care about all of this? It's like whatever, maybe it's 5% for the rest of your life. You're going to pay the government 50%, you get nothing in return. So if you pay 5% and you get Coach K to teach you how to shoot a jumper, it's better than that. Right? So why isn't it possible? And I remember how people had this unbelievably paternalistic, allergic reaction to income sharing agreements when they were first talked about.
They called them indentured servitude, and they compared them to slavery. And it was like,
oh my God,
so insulting to
but
the concept of slavery.
It's no different than signing a contract with an agent to represent you when you first start out in any industry, music or sports or film or whatever. You could sign an agency agreement where the agent is your rep for 10, 20 years, right? I mean, some of those agreements can have long tails on them, and that's effectively the same.
No, look at it's even worse.
Had a cap.
Look at we can talk about this in a second, but did you see what happened with Chappelle the last couple of days? Where Chappelle?
Oh yeah, let's go. Did you watch the video?
I loved it. Yeah,
the video is incredible.
So the quick story on this is Chappelle basically did. He had a request. He went to Netflix and he said, "Take down Chappelle show." Netflix took it down. And he did a little stand-up. It's on his Instagram. It's like 18 minutes. It's fabulous, as most Chappelle stuff
Peak
is. Peak Chappelle. And he basically told this story, which essentially the punchline is he signed a contract where he just got completely fucked. And he's like, this is happening every single day in so many markets. And so the idea that then you have actually a different market, which disrupts something by actually creating transparency and something reasonable is all of a sudden completely immoral. Makes no sense to me. So there's abuses happening all the time. That is what the contract that Chappelle signed was indentured servitude. He doesn't even have the rights to his name. He cannot.
They took his name and likeness, right? Yeah. If you wanted to create the Dave Chappelle show again, you'd have to call it the DC show.
But this is a perfect.
Somebody owns his name. What the fuck?
In perpetuity in all mediums and platforms forever.
This is a perfect tie back to the earlier statement about, do you have the appropriate kind of understanding of the risk you're taking or the benefit that you're getting? I think Kanye's been doing this whole thing about he doesn't own the masters to his music originally, right? At the moment that he signed that contract, when he signed over all the masters, the master recordings and all the future revenue rights to his music, he was getting paid a ton of money in his mind at that time. He said, oh my gosh, I'm getting whatever it was. Let's say it's $5 million. I'm getting $5 million, the most amount of money I've ever seen. It is absolutely worth me giving over the masters of this music and the future royalty rights to this music for 12 songs or whatever it is for me to get $5 million today, and I can live an amazing life and it'll change everything for me. Who is to say that he was not, of the appropriate sound mind and understanding to decide in that moment to take that $5 million and give up all future royalties to his music?
Well, Chappelle's argument was the people who are in that ecosystem are all friends. They're all working together, and they've commoditized the artist, and they collude to do this kind of upside limiting deals. And I think what makes Silicon Valley so special is that we collude the other direction. We want people to have equity participation, and we want the social contract of Silicon Valley is I'm giving you equity. I hope your penny stock becomes worth $1,500 and that you create multi-generational wealth and you become an angel investor.
But I don't know. Look, if I'm an angel investor or want to be an angel investor and some schmo tricks me into investing in his shitty company and I just lose $20,000, but I didn't know how to determine whether that company was shitty or not because I've never done investing before.
Read my book.
Is it for the government to regulate that circumstance and say, you know what, you need to be a quote unquote qualified investor to be able to discern a good company for a bad company or bullshit from not? And,
well,
the same for these contracts, right? Like, I mean, so, we're making the argument, I think, for the regulatory framework for preventing people from being able to have freedom of choice. And I think, like earlier, the case was made, like people should be able to have freedom of choice at any point. Why should the government kind of step in and make a decision for me?
I think that I'm not advocating for government intervention. My only point is that there are morally reprehensible things that are happening today using contracts, and that something like an income sharing agreement actually rights the ship in so many ways.
That's definitely the burden of capitalism. Ultimately, it devolves to that, right? Where like, oh, you're sick, you have cancer, pay me $1 million, I'll give you this drug.
So Hollywood's a little bit of its own beast where there's all these gatekeepers and the gatekeepers are always trying to get control over, the creative product. And so, signing contracts with those sharks is always a dangerous thing to do. I think Silicon Valley is very different. We have much more of a culture of equity. I think the income sharing agreements are much more in that vein. And I think they're a great idea for like any trade that demonstrably increases your earning power, right? So the beauty of Lambda School is they pay for you to get an education being a coder. It then increases your salary and they get a piece of that. That's like a win-win for everybody. I think where this goes, if these ISAs are successful, is that every trade that's valuable will get its own ISA type school. And then that gets peeled out of a university education. So what's left for colleges to do? It's basically, all the stuff that doesn't add value.
They're museums. They're basically like these monasteries again, right? They go back to being monasteries, not places where you get skills.
We need to celebrate vocational capability because I think we have so celebrated this mythical bachelor's degree and it just means fucking nothing. It doesn't learn a trade, and that's just as frankly that should be as respected or more. But in the American culture, you don't do that right now. I've never understood that. If you go, for example, to different countries around the world, Europe's a good example actually of this because it's the closest analog in terms of quality of living to America. There's a real celebration of people who choose vocational tradecraft because there's an entire educational infrastructure that you can onboard yourself into. You can become a skilled person, and you can have a really good, decent life. And
there's pride in the work.
And there's pride in that work. And in America, you covet this piece of paper. The piece of paper is really just a scam that allows, administrators to basically pay themselves millions of dollars and or run an asset management business as the Trojan horse of that purpose. It just doesn't make any sense. And so, I don't know. I just think
the most amazing thing about these companies, I've been digging into them because I'm looking for more to invest in. And these companies that are the trade schools that are basing themselves on ISAs, and there are ones who are doing welding and plumbing and all kinds of different things. And there are ISA platforms that are providing ISAs to any school that wants them and doing like the sort of AWS of ISAs. Anyway, what this firm told me was, inside of one of these trade schools, they spend 50% of their time on placement, 50% on education. And that at a college, they spend 99.x amount of time on the education and less than 1% on placement, which kind of tracks, right? I mean, when we went to college, I don't know if it's changed much, but the Career Services Center was like this 2-person office, like in the worst part of campus. And they don't, when you're doing an ISA, if you accept more people who are unqualified and aren't ready for the education or are not motivated for it, it works against you because they're not going to pay back the ISA. So you then get sharper. You sharpen the blade of who gets accepted. You start accepting the right people. These colleges, they would accept anybody who would come in and take the loans. That was your qualifier, is did you pass your loan?
The ISA as a service idea is a brilliant idea. I would invest in that. I like that idea as an investment way better than running one of these schools. You know,
too.
that's basically issuing the ISAs themselves. But how amazing is that we live in a country where people are willing to, you know, as a movement now, people are willing to fund your education because they know it's going to increase your earning power, and then they'll get paid on the back end. That's like fantastic.
Yeah.
And like that's all like happening. All that innovation is happening right now without the government needing to get involved, or a big government loan program.
And the hysterical
people getting
left
saddled. People
is
are getting
calling
saddled
it
with all
indentured
this debt.
servitude. Literally like the Voxes and the New York Times of the world. And
but I mean, I think
indentured servitude is having a $250,000 debt that you've got to pay down and you can never get rid of in bankruptcy for the rest of your life.
Yeah, that's real indentured servitude.
Yeah.
I think the problem is that, you know, East Coast left-leaning editorial publications, they have to themselves justify their $190,000 bachelor of philosophy from Oberlin College. So, you know, if you take that,
Chamath, Oberlin is the number one listener base we have on this podcast.
Yeah,
Shit.
you just lost.
Yeah.
No, but you're right. Once you've taken out every valuable trade and moved them from a university where you got to pay $100,000 a year to an ISA where it costs you nothing, like what's left? It's just going to be people studying
Philosophy.
Foucault. Oh yeah, people studying Foucault.
Intersectionality studies.
they'll be studying the past. They'll be studying the past.
Yeah, what a disaster to collapse upon itself. All right, as we wrap up here, let's just take a moment to think about what some people are calling the big reset. It's Thanksgiving. We have a change in management in the country, which is obviously polarizing. So I'll put that aside. But I think what's happened with these vaccines and science is truly miraculous. And let's face it, a lot of people, there's a lot of pain and suffering this year. A lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people lost their restaurants. A lot of people are suffering from mental illness. Some people are having to take care of their kids and get to know them. I mean, it's been hard for a lot of people. Sorry about that, Sacks. That wasn't directed
David,
at
do you know your children's names now?
Yeah.
I do now. I mean,
David,
that's like
what's it like to spend 3 hours with one of your children?
He's got flashcards in front of him right now. There are pictures on the back. The name's on the other side.
That's so brutal. So anyway, I was trying to be sincere.
the kids would even occasionally run into my office during COVID, you know.
Yeah, and they want to talk to you and hug you and show affection.
Yeah, crazy.
They're like,
"Excuse me, sir. Who are you?" "I'm your father."
Actually, I am.
I thought I was just working from my office, and all these kids show up and tell me it's their home. So,
Well, I just wanted to announce to the All-In audience that we have upgraded Friedberg and Sacks' chips. Just last week, Chamath and I pushed the update for the Joy 1.7 update. And how's it been going to the two Davids now that you have a third emotion?
we now have emotion of joy.
Do not use it for...
It feels good and warm inside body.
Do not use it all in same day. Spread it out over a month.